Hey guys, welcome back! We're not updated to the new Minecraft update, but I am still very excited for today's episode because today we are going to build our two buildings over on this witchy side of the island. And maybe also build a little something on the other side of the pyramid as well. I mentioned last episode that I really wanted to build something over there. Now we've terraformed the area and it feels a lot more open, so hopefully we'll get to that as well. But first, I really want to tackle both the small and tall buildings over on this side of the island. And I'm kind of hoping with both of these buildings in place, this part of the island is really going to start coming together and feel a bit more complete. I mean, obviously, like I mentioned, we will still have to build over on the other side of the pyramid, and I'm sure there will also be plenty of other details and little areas, but these are probably going to be the biggest builds I have left for this side, so let's jump straight in and get building. Whew, 2 buildings in 1 time lapse. It is not very often that we get that. So let's start off talking about this smaller building, which, while it is small, it does have a lot of character, which I love. So this building is designed to be a place where people can give offerings to the witch temple without actually having to go inside, hence having the chest. And since it's basically a place where people go in, drop something off and leave, it's relatively simple. However, I wanted to make sure that I kept the overall vibe going on, so while I did play around with the idea of using twisting vines as decorations, which did actually look really cool, I ended up sticking with the amethyst clusters to make it feel a little bit more cohesive, and I think it was the right decision. And I did also decide to introduce candles for lighting, as they felt like they really fit with the temple religion style, and purple seemed like the best choice because traditionally it's quite a rich or rare colour, which fits with the offering space where, hopefully, yes, people are offering their riches to the temple. As for the design of the building itself, I was actually really inspired by The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, specifically the depths. I'm pretty sure I've mentioned it before, but I love the Zelda games and have for as long as I can remember, and the depths had such a cool vibe to them. And down in the depths there are these little buildings scattered around which have these sort of flared out corners, which I just immediately wanted to try and replicate in Minecraft. And I mean, it's not perfect on this small scale, but I love the way this looks. And because I love the way this looks, you'll very quickly notice that I've used the same basic design with this building up on the hill, just at a much larger scale so we can stack the frames on top of each other to make this tower, which, as promised, is just a bit lower than the pyramid itself. I think the top about lines up with the eyes, which I think looks pretty good. But unlike the building at the base of the temple, this building is not designed for offerings, but instead it's built for prayer and remembrance of those who have recently been lost. You see, in this culture, their dead aren't buried, but instead they're cremated and their spirits are released into the air. The family, as part of their mourning ritual, lights a candle each week, starting at the lowest level of the temple and slowly moving up as their prayers cleanse the soul of their loved ones, hence the candles getting lighter as they go up. And then once a month has passed, the family leave their formal grieving period and the spirits of their loved ones find the central fire all the way at the top, and they're finally released and are free to live on with their ancestors in the air. The only other thing that's a little bit different with this building is the use of soul lanterns, but I figured they kind of fit the theme of the souls or spirits getting cleansed, but also the tower would need a bit more lighting because the number of candles around would fluctuate as people die, so they'd want to ensure there's some consistent lighting and not solely rely on the candles from grieving families. But that's a lot of lore dumping, so how about we change tracks and move on to the last thing I want to do today, which is doing something with this side of the temple. As I've said before, after our terraforming last episode, this space is just begging to have something done with it. So let's give this place some love. You know, I am actually really happy with this. I was aiming to create quite a contrast to the kitchen garden we have on the other side with its more formal and orderly style, and make this more of a communal shared space, and I think it's actually working. So we enter the park through this little archway, which once again uses the flared corner design, but I love the shape of this. It feels kind of grand somehow, but it's also the perfect size to go around our path without being completely overbearing. So I think I may end up using this arch design elsewhere in the island as well, because I just really like it. But anyway, moving on from the arch, we have our stepping stone path, and I wanted to make sure the path in the park itself has quite a distinct style from the regular path while still being in keeping, and using the same block palette but breaking it up into stepping stones felt like the best way of doing this. And stepping stones always feel quite like a garden park type of thing to have, so I think it works quite nicely, and the path has a nice little curve as well to just try and keep things a bit more dynamic. And then I was thinking about the sorts of things you find in public parks, and the main thing that struck me was we need a lot of benches, especially since this is a spiritual area, so people are likely to want to sit and reflect, and so benches were an absolute must. And in this section here, we just had a bit more space, so I thought this pergola kind of design would make for a nice feature, and I really like the way it turned out. And we also have this little pond, which does feel slightly pointless given the very large lake next to it, but I think it's the difference between a wild lake and a cultivated pond, so I think they can coexist quite nicely. And I may end up adding a fish or two in here just for some more movement, but it's a nice little area. Then we have our 2 trees, which are of course necessary in a park, and as I've said before, making custom trees is definitely not my forte, so I actually tried a different approach this time, which I think has been quite effective, and that approach is using a normal Minecraft tree design and then changing the leaves and logs to appear like a different tree. So for example, both of these trees are based on regular cherry trees. I made a couple of small changes on both, but the basis is just a normal Minecraft cherry tree. But changing it to azalea leaves makes it have quite a different vibe and feel more like a custom tree. And I honestly really like the effect, and it certainly gets around my issue with designing trees, which I will get back to, but just not in this specific area. Also, I love this little swing. It's such a small detail, but I just really like the way it looks, and somehow it just brings this whole area together. It's probably just me, but I absolutely love it. The final point of interest in this park is this little flower bed, and this is where I had the idea to go with the slightly more overgrown style, which I then extended to the whole area. And that's because, as we've previously said, this culture has been lost for quite a while, so the greenery and everything will have gone a bit out of control in the time since it was last tended to. I didn't want to go completely overboard and make it super messy, so I think this is all quite a nice midpoint where there's some weeds and plants out of place, but it's not overpowering the overall design. I have also currently left the cursed vines, and I can't quite decide whether to remove them or not. They don't quite fit the vibe, but it also feels wrong to remove them. Let me know what you think. Should I remove them? Also, I'm not totally sold on all these moss patches. I basically put them in because I needed to hide some lighting to stop mob spawning, especially slimes close to the temple, and having single carpets looked very weird and obviously out of place, but having these little mossy patches kind of adds to the messier vibes and makes it feel more like a design choice. I think it's starting to grow on me, and it does give us some good options for hiding lighting, but we'll see. I'll keep looking at it, and if I decide I don't like it, then I'll try and come up with something else. However, I am currently thinking that this ground decoration with the azalea bushes and ferns and everything, potentially including the moss patches, may be the sort of vibe that I'll carry across the whole island to decorate the empty spaces and give that final level of detail. I mean, it may not be quite as concentrated as it is here, but I think it's quite a nice set of blocks that we can use which won't feel super intrusive, but would add some little detail and make the island feel more alive and natural. But we'll see. We have plenty of time because I'm pretty sure this sort of fine detailing will be about the last thing we do in this project. As for today, we got a lot done. We built 2 buildings and this lovely little park, so I am very happy with how today went. I really hope you guys are enjoying this project as much as I am, because I am just having so much fun with it. And I think next time we might turn our attention to the other side of the island and maybe try and fix up the hill that our slime farm is going to be on, because I just can't keep leaving it as a floating platform, so I really need to get on that. But that's definitely a job for next episode. So until then, thank you guys for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye!